Hey, we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech live on YouTube. Today I'm streaming earlier here in Puerto Rico, but it's more windy, so lighting is probably not going to be a problem today, but sound might be. It's all going to be dependent on how good the onboard microphones are on the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Sorry for somewhat of the confusing title. I was trying to sum up what I mean by Apple kind of abandoning this Touch ID idea, but it's actually a little point that Ross Young brought up that I didn't get to cover in yesterday's video, so I figured maybe the live stream would be a good time to kind of carry on with that thought, which is essentially that Apple, as of right now, with the supply chains they're looking at and the display panels they're buying for the iPhone 14 series, there doesn't seem to be any plan of Touch ID making a comeback anytime soon. And you would have thought that in 2020, especially with the pandemic and everything, it would have been the perfect time for them to reintroduce Touch ID, either through the power button, just like they have on the iPad Air. They found a way to redesign Touch ID in a way that wasn't in the home button, and yet they put it on a freaking iPad. They didn't put it on their, the bread and butter, the bestseller, which was the iPhone. And we would have inevitably thought, especially with masks and everything, and more people, there's new variants and people are still required to wear masks in schools and airports, and I've definitely had to wear a ton during this trip. You would have thought Apple would have seen all of this demand potentially for Face ID to be interrupted, and Touch ID would be a lot better because you probably wouldn't be as impacted during the pandemic with Touch ID, but they still didn't budge on it for several generations now. Obviously, the iPhone 12 didn't have Touch ID, neither did the 13, and now we're getting most reports claiming that the iPhone 14 probably won't have Touch ID either. So it's interesting because we've seen Apple go backwards on a lot of things. The MacBook Pro I'm using right now is a pretty decent example of like, okay, we tried the touch bar, it didn't work out, so we go backwards and just go with traditional function keys. At least they brought them back at full size, right? They didn't go with the narrow function keys. They were like, hey, if we're going to have these keys, we got to go big. So they gave us the full-size function keys, but they also went backward on the butterfly keyboard because that proved not to be super reliable. They went backward on the legacy I/O because they couldn't get enough people switching over to Thunderbolt, so they went all in with USB-C for a few years, and now they've kind of admitted defeat and said, okay, SD card slot, yeah, that's kind of nice. HDMI port, yeah, that's kind of nice. So it's interesting to see Apple go backwards on so many things, and simultaneously, when you would have expected in a present-day Apple that's so comfortable going backwards on so many things they introduced, now with Face ID and Touch ID, they're like, no, that's okay. Face ID is the way of the future. And even through the pandemic, making Face ID the standard biometric for pretty much the entire iPhone lineup. The only exception is the iPhone SE. And I think even then, it's not really necessarily because they know some people prefer Touch ID. It's mostly just because we need to reuse an old iPhone design to get the price this low. We can't have a new iPhone design get that cheap. So to me, I don't think necessarily the SE is there simply because they think some people prefer Touch ID. That's certainly hard to argue against. I mean, that could be why. But yeah, background is even more beautiful. I agree. My useless keys are even bigger and more in my face now. Exactly. Okay, good. Audio sounds good. I'm glad. Ryan is trolling now. He's insistent that I've still got green screens. Oh my God. I can't tell anymore when people are being sarcastic or not. Maybe they know it bothers me because of how much, time and effort went into traveling here and trying to film with such great backdrops. Despite all this, people are like, cool, green screen. How Apple still managed to make sales without Touch ID in this mask age. Yeah, kind of what I was going for. There wasn't an easy title that described my thought process, but I always look for something to kind of kick the live streams off with, and that's what I wanted to talk more about in yesterday's video, but I didn't get a chance to, was just that Ross Young was detailing, by the way, don't expect Touch ID to come back on the iPhone 14 series this year. I find that kind of bizarre. About a year ago when we were talking about the iPhone 13, I had figured, well, the pandemic really hit in March, in the United States at least. It really hit in March of 2020. So maybe the iPhone 12 design was mostly finalized by then. Maybe they didn't really have that much of a chance to throw in an extra biometric at the last second during development. So maybe that's why the iPhone 12 didn't get Touch ID, but Apple knows with all the mask mandates and how often Face ID doesn't work with a mask. Of course, maybe with the 13 series, though, that would give them a good opportunity to catch up. And maybe we could add Touch ID with that. And I remember making videos a year ago saying all of the things I'm excited about with the iPhone 13 are tech spec related things. Oh, thank you for the super chat. He didn't say anything, but thank you, Alexander. Essentially, I was thinking, I like 120 hertz, so I'm excited for that. And I would like ProRes video recording, and I would like cinematic mode for the portrait mode effect while recording video. I appreciate all those things, but I'm a techie guy. I'm kind of a nerd. I'm a geek. I'm interested in those types of details, whereas an average consumer, honestly, I gotta be honest, in my own little social circle, I don't even see the average consumer taking portrait mode shots that regularly. Tell me if it's different in your circles. I know this is anecdotal evidence, but I frankly don't see that many people. I can think of my sister quite regularly will take a portrait mode shot, but that's about it. Like, my wife doesn't like portrait mode because she doesn't like it when the background is blurred, and the friends we're staying with, I don't see them taking portrait mode shots too regularly. It's a cool feature, but even the photo aspect of portrait mode I don't see being used too frequently. So cinematic mode, again, is kind of cool for us techies, but I don't think even that is super interesting. So my pitch last year, thank you for both the super chats, Alex. My pitch last year was that Touch ID would probably be the best like average consumer selling point. I could see a lot of like everyday people knowing the difference between Touch ID and Face ID, and everyday people using their iPhone and realizing Face ID doesn't work with the mask on. I could totally unlock my phone more frequently and easily if I had a fingerprint reader on it instead, because of course there's lots of Android phones that still have fingerprint readers on them as well. So I saw that as like, this could be a really great like everyday person selling feature in 2021. And Apple didn't take advantage of that, even though they had redesigned Touch ID. I think there's a real cheap way they could do it and just incorporate it in the side button, just like they did on the iPad Air, iPad Mini. Clearly, it's not that expensive if you can do it in a $499 iPad and still give it the A15 chip and still give it Apple Pencil 2 connectivity. I don't think fingerprint on the power button is that complicated, and yet they still didn't want to do it. So it's interesting how Apple got around that during this whole process, and how it's still going on, and we're hearing about the iPhone 14 and Apple's still like, it would add too much to the cost, or maybe Apple doesn't like the complexity of having multiple biometrics to choose from. Most people I use just use the default settings for photos. That's me too, Katrina. I'm in that same. Jim Jam John says, yeah, everyone literally just uses the regular camera and videos saying, oh, Alex says you can't say anything with super chats under $2. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it worked. I don't want it to work that way. You're welcome to super chat and then send the message right after it, and I'll do my best to find it. But actually, I have the display brightness at full right now, and because I'm streaming in broad daylight, it's actually kind of hard to read the chat. But yeah, Benji's correct. Buy an Apple Watch. Problem solved. I still think, I'm glad that feature exists, but I still think it's ooh, there's a white cat over here. Let me see if I can get. Oh, he knows I'm trying to point the camera at him. Just so you guys know, this is totally a green screen that I designed, and there's a cat that I built into this 360-degree green screen set. No, it's not a green screen. Oh my god. But bye, kitty. There's actually a lot of cats on this island. Why would you want that beautiful background of Puerto Rico blurred out? Yeah, it's exactly. I don't want things blurred out. I mean, portrait mode is cool and all. It definitely makes a smartphone photo not look like a smartphone photo, but the thing is, the regular modes are so freaking good anyway. But yeah, the approach Apple did with the Apple Watch unlocks your iPhone if it detects a mask is still kind of not that impressive. I mean, it's convenient. I like it. I don't mind the fact that it doesn't actually work very securely, in a sense. Like, it works fine. I mean, it notifies you on your watch when your phone has been unlocked, which is good, and I actually think that's really nice. But what I've noticed is that even if someone else picks up my phone, because oftentimes, you know, my wife wants some pictures that I took during a hike or while we were at the beach. She was like, can you airdrop me these photos and videos? And if I'm busy with something, I'll just hand her my phone. She can unlock it now, as long as basically the phone detects a face that isn't mine. It will just unlock and I'll get the little vibration on my watch, and I can relock it again if I want to, but I trust my wife. I mean, she knows my passcode at the end of the day, so it doesn't really matter. If anything, this saves her time, so I don't mind it. But I still got a lot of comments and a lot of replies on Twitter of people saying, hey, is this a bug? Like, anyone can unlock my phone if I have that watch unlock the phone when wearing a mask thing. Like, why can anyone unlock my phone now? I'm like, yeah, it's kind of clunky the way it's designed. It's not really comparing like, oh, his eyes and this part of his face are the same, but he just happens to be wearing a mask, so we'll unlock it. It's basically like, oh, this is not the original owner, but the watch is nearby, so I'm gonna unlock anyway. And I can choose to relock it if I want to. I'm kind of fine with that because I've made videos in the past about how I want the Apple Watch to be the key to the entire ecosystem. You know, I wish the watch could do everything essentially, unlock the iPad, unlock the Mac and all that. You ever plan on visiting Europe? We want to. We just got to pick one thing at a time. Drew got that studio that they used for Mandalorian. Correct. I just have a complete wraparound screen. There's a problem that I wasn't necessarily considering as I went live here is that OBS is saying encoding overloaded, and I think it's not overloaded because I've done higher bit rates than this before, but I'm streaming in the sunlight and it's kind of hot today, which is probably heating up the computer. So I might have to move this just a tad bit so that we're out of the sunlight. I don't know if that'll help, but if there's frame drops, I don't think it's because of the internet. Any canines? There's actually not that many dogs here, no. So let me see. Not sure exactly how solid this connection's gonna be if I move it this way. Let me try to set it down here. I hope that cools it down. Okay. So for those curious, I am still live with the MacBook Pro, but it's been quite hot here and it's probably overheating the computer. Not because it's processing anything, it's just I'm touching the edges of it. Even the outside of the MacBook are very hot. OBS is picky, I agree. But yeah, this is still totally green screen, right? Let's see. Never been anyone with such green screen skills before. Yeah, I think that the Apple Watch was kind of a cop-out way of tolerating, because Face ID basically does nothing now. If you're wearing a mask, it just says, I can't unlock this, is the Apple Watch nearby? And if the watch is nearby, then it unlocks anyway. I'm using the regular OBS for now. Let's see, this wouldn't be possible with Intel. No, this is probably the hottest my chip has ever gotten. The problem is the M1 Max can't actively cool itself. That would be nice. Yeah, I see how choppy it is. That's not good. I think it just needed to cool down. Let me give it a moment. Okay, the encoding overloaded went away. So let's see if that stabilizes. It's weird. OBS is actually not saying that many frames have dropped. Even though when I'm watching back the stream, definitely a lot of frames have dropped. People are saying it's fine now. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that stabilized it. I guess I can't do it just in direct daylight. How many degrees is it out there? It's about... Oh, I guess I could check the app. I know it's windy too. I wish if your phone was on a table and your watch is on, you could unlock your phone without using the passcode. That kind of sets a dangerous precedent for how useful the passcode really is, because if you start letting people just not do that, yeah, I see the frames stabilized once OBS said encoding wasn't overloaded anymore. So I've actually just put, ironically, the MacBook Pro on a barbecue. So now that it's on a barbecue, it's fine. I wish I had a chair. There was a chair here a few days ago, and I don't know where it is, but that's okay. Yes, this is the onboard webcam. I can't turn on the voice isolation thing. I was actually curious about that. I know it's windy, but I wish I could go to control center and on mic mode choose like voice isolation. But for some reason, for the past like week or so, or ever since I've started looking for it, it's not there. I can turn on like cinematic mode pretty easily, but that's about it. Yeah, Victor's saying it's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. 80 degrees, and then you put your computer straight in sunlight and start live streaming. Live streaming in general makes computers hot, so it's kind of like a worst case scenario for all the thermals. Maybe if I found a way to bring the shade over there, I could have the better background. I mean, you can kind of see my cool background. Use the heat to destroy the heat. Yeah, the barbecue keeps the MacBook cool, exactly. How do I like Puerto Rico? I'm loving it so far. I mean, we are trying to balance everything. Like, obviously, you can get tired really quickly if you spend every day, going to the beach and going hiking and everything. So we're trying to like do some days on, some days off. In regards to like on my days off, I get work done and I make videos and I do these live streams. And then on the other days, we will go tour and see a different part of the island. We've got tons of suggestions. Everyone's like, go here, go here, go here. We're trying to hit up as many places as we can. So yesterday we did a lot of hiking and walking around Old San Juan, and we're obviously a little bit tired from that. So today I'm catching up on work, but then we're going to a different island tomorrow. So there's just all kinds of stuff going on, but I'm loving it. Yes, it's good. Let's see. Try new features in the YouTube settings. Yeah, picture-in-picture is a thing for premium users. Somehow YouTube got away with that. Like, Apple didn't want any app features to be behind a paywall, so YouTube got around it by making it this like beta feature that you can enable through Safari, but which basically does the same thing, but I don't understand how they got away with it. Yeah, Victor's saying always have a pair of swim trunks in your car. That's a good idea here because there's so many good places to swim. How's the working away from home experience? It's been really nice, actually. It makes me super duper grateful I got this MacBook, because I definitely could not have done this with the iMac Pro, and I probably could attempt to do videos off the iPad Pro just with LumaFusion. And for the record, all the videos I've done since I've got here have been off the iPhone. I didn't bring the Blackmagic camera. I don't have another DSLR. I've just done everything off the iPhone, and it has done great. The video quality, the photo quality of the iPhone is wonderful, and I airdrop everything, so I don't have to use the lightning cable. I do actually record the audio to an SD card, so I am still using SD cards and the SD card slot on the MacBook, but the truth is I can just edit videos and export them so much faster with Final Cut. LumaFusion can do what I need, but it's just much slower. When you have that fixed time head, and you have to scroll the timeline side to side, you just can't get videos done as quickly as you can with a keyboard and a trackpad with Final Cut. Not to mention the M1 Max chip is super duper fast, so I can export videos very quickly, and of course have all of my customized settings instead of doing whole camera roll tricks through LumaFusion. Sorry, it's so windy. So it's different for sure. If I was doing like a permanent setup, I probably wouldn't film outside every single day. I would try to come up with somewhat of an indoor set that I could use, but obviously I'm here temporarily, so there's not really going to be much point in me coming up with a permanent indoor setup and outdoor setup. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It makes me really proud that Apple hardware can work as reliably as it does between the exports and the video recordings. And the actual trickiest part, since you're asking me about this, Alpha, thanks for your channel membership support, so I'm going to dwell on this point a little bit longer. The hardest part about filming outside is not lighting, or even it rains here very suddenly. That's not really a big problem. Ooh. The wind shut a door on a it's just a door. It's actually audio, especially when it's really, really windy like this. My Zoom microphone does not cancel out audio as well as the onboard mics do on the MacBook Pro. So whenever it's super windy like this, it's actually really, really hard to record a video. So I'll be making a point, saying something, and then the wind picks up and I just have to stop and I have to wait. And sometimes I got to wait like 30 seconds to a minute to 2 minutes just for the wind to die down so that I can start talking again. Otherwise, there's just going to be this loud wind clipping sound whenever I'm recording my videos. So that's definitely the biggest challenge. Like there was a point yesterday where I was like, oh, okay, before we go on this hike, I want to get a video in. We've got some time. And I was trying to record the video, but it's just way too dang windy. It's super, super breezy, and it was not stopping. And the MacBook microphone kind of can get rid of it. I did some tests earlier to see how it sounded, and for the most part, it blocks it out pretty well, but still not completely. And the Zoom microphone is terrible. It doesn't block out any wind noise, so that makes it hard to film outside. But frankly, it's probably still better than what the audio would sound like inside because it's all concrete walls and a tile floor, so it's very echoey anyway. But yes, the weather's fantastic. This is like perfect weather for me. Like every day it's between 70 and 80 degrees, and it's not too hot. It's not chilly. I've never like been like, ooh, I should put on jeans or I need to put on a jacket. Like even when it's pouring rain, it's still pretty warm. Is there enough space on Puerto Rico for an Apple Park? There definitely is. It looks like a small island on a map of the world, but it's quite a big place. There's a lot to see. Let's see. Have I visited Ponce? No, I would live there and would like for you to visit my city. We're trying to visit as many places as we can with what we have. There's 4 of us basically and 1 car, and half of us have, 75% of us have work to do or school to go to. So everybody's got different stuff going on, but whenever there is an opportunity to go somewhere, I'll absolutely take it. What's kind of funny, see, just like right now, the wind just completely died. I don't hear any now. It's just very on and off. What's funny is that even though the wind is hard to record videos with, for one, Final Cut has this setting in it. I don't know if LumaFusion has the same filter, but there's an option in Final Cut for you to scan an audio file, and it's really, really easy to cut out wind noise. It's called noise removal, and if you set it to a certain percentage, it'll just kind of like block out certain audio levels, which gets rid of the wind problem, which is nice. But when I'm not recording, the wind feels great because it's obviously kind of warm here. It's enough for you to like sweat a bit if you're standing in the sun for a while, but when the wind comes in, it's kind of like this perfect little breeze that cools you off. So I love the wind other than when I'm recording videos. Aside from that, it's perfect. Like we leave a lot of the windows and doors open at the place we're staying at, and we can just enjoy the view, feel the breeze come in the house, and it's really relaxing. So amazing weather, absolutely. But yeah, it's very cold back home. Does it make you nervous knowing you're surrounded by water instead of being in Nebraska where I've never been to Nebraska, but thanks for asking. No, there's so much land here that like I can't see the ocean from where I'm at currently. We're pretty freaking far from the ocean. I mean, not as far as Nebraska, but obviously no. It doesn't bother me that I'm surrounded by water because even in Nebraska, if you go far enough, you're going to hit water. I can do the voice isolation on my phone when in Facebook Messenger calls or PlayStation app calls, but I'm not sure how it is on Mac. So normally, I would be able to, just like with video effects, if the webcam or the microphone is being used, I can go up to Control Center, hit Video Effects, and hit Portrait. And that's what will start to blur the background like this. But obviously, I like the background. It's pretty. So that's why I'm going to leave that off. And normally, right next to Video Effects, there's an option that says Mic Mode, and it's grayed out. But it's basically, just the icon of the microphone. And I want to be able to click that and hit Voice Isolation, but it's grayed out. I don't know why. I've gone to microphone settings, and I don't see an option for it. I have the feeling that the voice isolation thing is, like, on by default, because Apple realized, like, why would you turn it off? If there's not much background noise, just leave the microphone normally, but if you start detecting wind noise and stuff, then turn it on. That's probably what's happening anyway. We're actually, I don't know if it's because I'm further away from the router, but I'm getting more dropped frames here. So I want to move just a tad bit closer just to see if that can help. Because, yeah, I don't want the frame drops. We're not even on Starlink, and it's still Starlinking. Yeah, everyone is surrounded by water to a certain point. Just Miles says, "You're lucky I'm stuck here in Pennsylvania with below freezing weather." Yeah, I do not envy you. I'm definitely not as into the cold weather as I am the the warmer weather. Um, Go to Survival Beach. I'm from Puerto Rico. Thanks for promoting the island. Yeah, we've got a lot of beaches to hit up still. I'm on the latest version of Mac OS, so I don't know why it's not there. But yeah, I'm hoping this MacBook could be cool because I want to go back to the. Oh, this might be a good place actually. Let me try this because it's in the shade here. Okay, that might work. Okay, I think I'm closer to the router. You still got a decent view of the background, and the MacBook's in the shade, so this is perfect. Anyway, um, is there anything particular that you had not liked about Puerto Rico in particular? Oh, there's pros and cons to all kinds of places. This is pretty freaking great so far. If there was one thing I had to pick that I didn't quite like, there's definitely a lot more potholes in the roads than I'm used to back home. I mean, the roads back home aren't perfect, but there's occasionally just really, really deep potholes here. So when you're driving somewhere, it's just a big boom and it's really loud. So that's not great, but yeah. If that's the only bad thing, I think it's a pretty great, awesome. I think it's a pretty great place. If that's your only issue, um, yeah, I think the way Apple demonstrated the voice isolation feature when they showcased the 24-inch iMac, it was like such a weird demo. They had someone like at their desk, and someone behind them was using like a leaf blower. It was like super duper loud. But I guess it worked pretty well for that demo. I don't know. Maybe the wind is more powerful than all the leaf blower. Um, let's see. I have the 11 Pro Max, and it's held up for a very long time. I'm looking forward to upgrading to the 14 Pro Max, and I'm excited. I don't know how I feel about the new display though. Um, yeah, I think the 11 Pro Max was still a solid phone. If I wasn't a tech reviewer, I would have probably hold on to that one longer. My dad still uses the 11 Pro Max. Until the 13 Pro Max came out, that was the longest battery life. I did not get the same battery performance on the 12 Pro Max as I did the 11. Um, so I think you'll be very happy with the 14 Pro Max. There's a lot of controversy right now, which is almost honestly kind of like seasonal, if I gotta be honest. Like it feels like every time we get some kind of new standard or new news about an iPhone design trait, this is how they're getting rid of the notch, or this is what the camera's supposed to look like. Everyone hates it at first. A few months go by, everyone gets used to it. Then it comes out and everyone goes, wow, it looks so great, I want one, and then they buy it. Um, so I feel like we're in the same boat. Like, obviously, I am not exactly in the same position as I was last year because I'm not planning on keeping the 14 Pro Max. I'll probably review an iPhone of some kind this year. I'm not saying I won't review new Apple products. It's just I won't put like my SIM in it and switch to it permanently. Just because I think the 13 Pro Max is so good, and I don't see eye hole cutout as substantially better than notch. But I do think it has somewhat of an identity to it. It's somewhat kind of an iconic, recognizable look to an iPhone. If you don't want to blend in with all the Androids having hole punch cameras, that's probably one affordable way. It's not just about like, well, we could put all the sensors under the display, but then it would look like an Android. It's like, no, they probably save a bunch of money by not having to put all those sensors behind the screen. But simultaneously cheaper, but yeah, it's the same thing with the notch. Everyone hated the notch when that leak got out there, and everyone started saying, wait a minute, there's going to be this big cutout at the top of the phone? No way, Apple would never do a notch. They've never done a notch before. That cutout's crazy. So that type of thing always happens where everyone's like, well, this has never happened before, therefore it's impossible. It could never happen. And then it happens. And that's probably what's going to happen with this eye hole. I don't know if anyone else was using the term eye hole. I don't know if I get to pioneer that terminology, but I can't think of a better term. I don't want to have to say pill plus hole punch every single time. That's quite a mouthful of syllables. Don't make me say pill plus hole punch every time we refer to that. And it's perfect because, Apple puts the letter I before a bunch of things, and it's literally the shape of an eye, so just call it eye hole. That makes sense to me. Everyone loves the notch now because it's actually come out and we're used to it. But everyone's gonna hate the camera holes until Apple comes out with it, and then they get used to it, and now everyone will be like, no, it's fine. It can stay that way. So it just doesn't apply to me too directly because this time I'm like, nah, I'm not interested in upgrading this year just because my 13 is so good. But it is funny how predictable a lot of the tech community is with just like, oh, this sucks, oh, this is terrible, and then it comes out and everyone's like, whatever, it's fine. I own a MacBook Air M1, an iPad Air 4, an iPad Mini 5. I'm planning on selling both iPads and getting a Mini 6. Is it worth it? Wow. If you have an Air 4 and a Mini 5, yeah, I would say so. I'm not a huge fan of the Air 4 to begin with. Even when it came out, I thought the price was a little bit too steep. But I think $499 for an iPad Mini 6 is pretty much perfect value. It's like that's the original starting price of the iPad back when it first launched. It was $499, and you're getting the 8.3-inch display. You got center stage, which I love so much. They even threw the flash in there. I just think that's such a solid product. Actually, Model Y Mike, who's watching the stream, bought an iPad Mini 6, and he showed me his setup with it not too long ago, and I really like that form factor. I haven't looked at a Mini 6 since I reviewed it, and I just picked up his, and it had the smart cover and everything on it, and I was just like, ooh, I like this. This is dope. Everyone except those Android fans who think the notch is ugly. I mean, I wouldn't say the notch is inherently beautiful. I just don't think it matters because it's at the part of the phone you use and look at the least. Tim Cook is the real eye-hole. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but do your own interpretation, I guess. Oh, wow. Thank you for the super chat, Green9227. Are you going to do a review on S22 Ultra when it comes out? What are your thoughts on the S Pen? Yeah, I've still, basically throughout most of 2021, and now going into 2022, I took a break from reviewing Androids because, for one, I don't get anything really to gain from breaking my Apple ecosystem and ruining my iMessage syncing between devices. The only reason I reviewed Androids was for the channel, was to give you guys an opinion and perspective on here's what an Apple sheep thinks of this Android. And in 2020, I reviewed basically, I feel like every kind of Android you can have. I tried an expensive foldable, I tried an affordable foldable, I tried a budget phone, which is the Pixel 4a, I tried a mid-range with the OnePlus 8, and then I tried a flagship with the S20 Ultra. And between all of those different reviews, the consensus typically ended up being the same of just like, okay, you're an Apple sheep though, I don't really care what you have to say. It's not like I need my videos to perform a certain way, but they just weren't performing that great, and it's a lot of trouble to, buy it, review it, and sell it, or return it, or, all of the trouble going into taking my SIM out, because I'm not the kind of tech channel that leaves his SIM in a normal phone and then just occasionally picks up the Android to review. No, like I want to fully commit to it, so I'll leave my iPhone behind. I'll put my SIM in the Android, which makes all my friends and family annoyed with me because suddenly I'm not the blue iMessage guy anymore. It breaks all of the message threads I'm in. And obviously the text message doesn't sync anymore between my Mac and my watch. So it ruins my walled garden experience. And to go through all that and just have the audience's response be like, I don't care though. So that's why I don't have immediate plans to review the S22 Ultra, because I'm sure I would review it and say, this hardware is really nice. I like the display, the cameras are fine, the camera's good, I like that it's USB-C, I like the high refresh rate, and I would just tell you all the things I like and then say, but it still runs Android, and it wouldn't fit into my ecosystem as well, so that's why I'm going to go back to my iPhone, and the audience would go, yeah, okay. So I just don't feel like I have that much unique perspective. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Dovenius. When is your next holiday? Probably in about a month for my birthday. We're going to travel again. I don't know if we're going to work on that trip, but yeah, probably in about a month. Interesting question. Thank you for the super chat. But yeah, it's like all the work it took to do those Android reviews wasn't really seeing much of a payoff or that much interest in my general audience, because I feel like the bulk of my audience on this channel is just like, yeah, that's great, I don't care, let's talk about Apple, because that's obviously the real tech company here. This is the company that's going to release products we actually use. And I kind of feel that way too, because I'm like, okay, the S22 might be great. The S22 Ultra could have a really, really great camera and fantastic battery life, but because it doesn't fit into my current ecosystem, I really don't care that much, because I focus on the ecosystem, and I focus on Apple more than others, not just because I'm like, Apple's all that matters, but for me, it's like all of these little tech spec differences. Okay, this display is 6.9 inches, this one is 6.7, this camera performs slightly better dynamic range in this situation and slightly better contrast in this situation. All those little details and differences make no difference to me. Like, that's why I have a hard time getting excited for a lot of those Android phones, is just because it's like, yeah, I'm sure it checks a certain number of boxes for certain people, and you might fit into those boxes that matter, you might not. But at the end of the day, any one of these flagships you buy, they all have fine battery lives, they all have fine displays, they all have fine cameras. What matters to me more is how they all work together, how they all are compatible with one another, because that does make a daily difference in my life. How well can my phone communicate with my laptop? How well can my watch communicate with my phone? That kind of stuff does make an impact, and I do notice those differences, whereas little resolution differences, little micro changes in the camera performance, it's like all the cameras are fine. If you're taking a picture or a video with your phone, it's good for a phone. If you care that much about little details with megapixel count or contrast or dynamic range, you're probably better off using a dedicated camera. They get the job done if you're on a phone, which is fine. Have you gone to Puerto Rico to avoid the cold weather at this time of year? That's a benefit of it, yeah, but it's not the sole reason. We basically had some friends that just moved here, and they invited us to come stay with them. So I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. So that's why I don't have any plans to review an Android. That being said, if I do review another Android phone, I want to do something a bit different. Because in the past, basically all of my Android phone reviews have been me putting my SIM into the phone, using it as my daily driver for 2 weeks, occasionally 1 month. With the Pixel 3 XL, I used it for a full month. That was a big commitment, and I did not like it. But if I do another Android phone review, I want to give it more time. I'm not necessarily looking forward to this, but I just know that if the channel wants to start talking Android again, it needs to approach it differently than what I've done in the past. I don't want to buy an S22 Ultra, put my SIM in it for 2 weeks, and then tell you what I think, and then go back to the iPhone. I think we've tried that. I don't think it's that interesting for the channel. I don't think it's that interesting for me. So if I do another Android attempt, it's going to be because I want to review it for a long-term thing. I want to see if my preferences or tastes in a smartphone and how it works into my ecosystem could actually change long-term. So like a year or something. And I don't know which phone. It could be a OnePlus, it could be a Galaxy, it could be a Pixel. I would probably ask for the audience's advice, like, okay, if I'm going to switch to an Android for a year, what phone should I use? You don't need to suggest any right now, because I'm not planning on doing this anytime soon. I probably won't do it for a while. So the phones that I end up reviewing for that long, I want to give it an honest shot. I'm not going to try to do it as an attempt to ridicule Android and talk about how Android sucks. I want to be like, let me give Android an honest try and actually use it for a long time. And I'll also kind of buy additional hardware along with it so that I can try a Google ecosystem and see if I can get comfortable, see if I can get used to it, or find advantages and things that I'm like, okay, maybe there's another ecosystem I can build that's better than Apple's. Maybe I need to try it and give it a shot, and maybe I'll find something I didn't realize that I really liked and appreciated. It's not likely to happen. I don't think I'm going to switch to a Google ecosystem and then discover I don't want to be so tied down to Apple anymore, but I think it would be interesting for the channel's perspective as the tech industry gets more and more boring, as phone upgrades get smaller and smaller. And I think especially once this whole Apple Silicon transition is done, there's going to be a lot less things to talk about in the tech community, at least in the Apple side of things. It's like, okay, all the Macs are transitioned now. Great. Yeah, that new Apple Watch upgrade sounds cool, right? Like when it gets boring, I'd want to do something interesting with the channel like that. But as for right now, I don't think it's that boring. There's still a lot of things to talk about, especially with Apple. The potholes here in Puerto Rico is what stopped me from getting a Model 3, and the fact that they don't support CarPlay. Yeah, there's actually still we saw a lot of Teslas yesterday. There's still a lot of Teslas here, but yeah, the potholes suck. Let's see. God, Drew just rambles on and on. What do you want me to stop talking? Would that be a more interesting live stream? I'll just. You guys can just talk to yourself. Like rambling is what I do. That's all we're here for. Folding tech is innovation, though. It's tech for smartphones that is unique and pushes a new form factor of smartphones forward. I guess I could describe it as innovative, but I think the term is misused because there's a lot of. If that's the case, then there's a lot of innovation that doesn't move the industry forward. It kind of creates like a. Well, what's that reference they use in the Loki show? It creates like a alt timeline. There's a little arc in smartphone history, but like I would say, if you think foldables are innovative, then the LG Wing with the display that swivels out, that was also innovative. Doesn't mean it's the future. Doesn't mean it changes much for the way of smartphones in the industry. It's just kind of tech companies showing off what they're capable of. It's like impressive that, wow, you found a way to fold pixels back and forth, but does that really change the smartphone industry, or does that just become kind of a cool toy for the tech community? That's honestly what it becomes. Let's see. You probably need to get a Windows laptop and connect them up to understand how that works. Oof. I really don't want a Windows laptop. Just Miles says, I think an iPhone SE with the form factor and display of the iPhone XR would be perfect, but it probably won't happen for a couple years. It kind of already has happened. It's called the iPhone 11. The iPhone 11 is $100 more, has the form factor of the XR. What you want is the iPhone SE to have more premium features. It's just to give it more premium features is going to cost more money, which is going to drive the price up. So you don't actually. This comes up a lot because everyone's like, the iPhone SE should be like the 12 mini, or the iPhone SE should be like the 13 mini. What you want is a lower price version of the iPhone 12 mini and 13. You don't actually want an SE. At least in my logic, and it appears by Apple's logic, SE does not mean $400. SE means old design with updated internals. And that's how they achieve $399, but SE does not guarantee, it's got to be these specs, these features. SE is always about reusing an old, dated design that doesn't match up with the current standard. So the iPhone 11 is $499. That's about as close as you're going to get, at least in the meantime, to a futuristic-looking, affordable iPhone. I still think that's a great deal. You could probably find iPhone XRs refurbished or whatever for less than that now. Android users think innovation means just adding a random gimmick that's going to be gone the year after. Innovation is change that stays. It's weird because there's lots of different definitions of innovation. There's not actually anything in the definition that says a change that stays. It's kind of a vague word that I think is misused or misinterpreted in the tech community a lot. It's like, yeah, I don't think the LG Wing really would be described as innovative. I mean, even though it technically falls under that definition, it's not what most other smartphones were doing. You don't really see that many phones that look like that, but obviously it didn't turn into anything, kind of died off. Now LG's not making smartphones at all, even though they were very innovative with their attempts. Is that two tiles on top of each other or a really old MacBook? It's definitely an old MacBook. It's so old it's made of wood. The caveman made it. Macintosh wood, actually. Foldables are not intuitive. Yeah, I just think they don't offer much more than... I think the tech community is hung up on the tech itself, which makes sense because that's what we're interested in. So, of course, it's cool. It's impressive that a phone or a device can actually have a width. Whoa! Jeez. That bee, flew right into my face. I want to see a replay of that. It's right behind the OBS thing. Did the webcam catch it? Oh, God. Let me see. I want to see this. He flew like right into my face. Man, how much delay is there? I thought there was less delay than this. How much backed up is the chat? Oh, wow, he did show up on the webcam. Dang, that was cool. Anyway, yeah, impactful is probably a more descriptive term, but that's just not how the tech community works. Thank you for the super chat, Green. Do you think Apple will give the iPhone Apple Pencil support? It's been rumored ever since there was an Apple Pencil, and it's never happened, so I'm just going to say no. I think that the Apple Pencil makes sense when you have a display large enough to do some drawing or note-taking, and I don't think the iPhone display is large enough to do that. But thank you for the super chat. Okay, you definitely saw it. Cool. Yeah, it's like the tech community is impressed. I am too, don't get me wrong. Like, it's technically impressive that you can fold the device in half like that, but what it allows for, what it enables that a normal phone can't do, not much. Very little. It doesn't go much further than it happens to fold in half. Does it make it more portable? Not really. Is portability that big a problem with smartphones these days? Not exactly. I mean, people will complain about it on occasion, but it's not really stopping them from buying bigger phones. At the end of the day, people just want big screens. Can you now fit an even bigger screen in your pocket? Yeah, a little bit. Thank you for the super chat, Kyle. He says he got his 11-inch iPad Pro yesterday. Congratulations. I hope you like it. If my iPad Pro conked out on me or broke, I would definitely just buy a refurbished 11-inch iPad Pro. I think that's the best value iPad ever. At any size, it's like the perfect middle ground. It's got Face ID. It's got the high refresh rate. It's $520 from Apple. You get a fresh battery, fresh glass, fresh aluminum, and full warranty. Comes with a fast charger. Like, you can't beat that value, in my opinion. That's just, think about it. It's $19 more than an iPad Mini 6. That's insanely good. Yeah, I haven't seen the general public, aside from people who like the Galaxy Note series, like demand that a stylus come with their phone. The few people I knew that actually had Galaxy Notes didn't use the stylus that much. They usually had to be reminded that they had one, and if I pointed it out to them, they'd be like, oh yeah, I have a stylus, and then they'd pull it out and like scroll with it. They weren't using it for something that they couldn't do with their finger anyway. So, yeah, it's Alpha says the 12.9-inch iPad Pro is too small. If they actually put macOS on there and you wanted to treat it like a laptop, then heck yeah, I would say 12.9 inches is too small. But for what iPadOS is optimized for, which is touch, basic media browsing, some social media here and there, checking email, I think 11 inches, 12.9 inches is fine. For what iPadOS is good for, it's not that big a problem. If it got any bigger, I would think of the Bendgate 3.0 at that point. Who will be the next Tim Cook? Do you mean Apple CEO or just reasonable? I would say if you're talking about like guy who takes over trillion-dollar company to set it up for tremendous success, I would say whoever comes after Elon Musk when he retires from Tesla. If he stops working at Tesla, whoever becomes the techno king after him, that'll be the next Tim Cook, because it'll be all about stability and just, you know, retaining profitability and that kind of thing. The Verge has a great documentary called Springboard. That was a really innovative company, but they failed for a variety of reasons. Yeah, it's usually not just one. I think the biggest problem with foldables is not what most people complain about with them. You know, if you go on tech forums and stuff, people are always like, well, I'm not doing it until the price gets this low, or I'm not doing it until they can find a way to do folding glass. And, you know, it's either the durability or the price or the aspect ratio. People have their own list of issues with foldables. My biggest reason is just that the selling point of the folding is not that useful. And that comes from actually using those phones. I tried a Z Flip for several weeks. I tried a Z Fold for several weeks. Like, I bought it, I used it, I put my SIM in it, and I started using it as a normal phone, and I found myself going back to just not unfolding it, because the extra step of having to pull something out of my pocket and then open it was just becoming so tedious and unnecessary. And the screen real estate was not that much bigger. It wasn't that much more helpful to have a, you know, okay, instead of a 6.7-inch display, now I have a 7.3-inch display that's a square aspect ratio. Okay, I guess it's slightly bigger, but like when people say they want a tablet that's in their pocket, most tablets are not that small. Um, the best-selling small tablet probably is the iPad Mini 6, and that's a 8.3-inch display. So even that is like as about as small as people are comfortable with tablets getting, and it's still much bigger than a foldable unfolded. So after using it for several weeks, I was like, yeah, some people in the tech community might like this, and that might keep the industry going a little bit. But for the most part, I don't see it replacing anything, and I don't see it becoming the norm. I don't see it becoming like this is what all phones do in the future. Um, let's see. Oh, Kyle got it at Best Buy. Nice. Drew, what would you want out of an Apple car? Man, pretty much everything Tesla's already done. I feel like it's far too late for the Apple car. I still think it would be really cool if Apple wanted to be considered relevant in the tech space and actually be a worthy competitor to different tech companies' market caps blowing up. You know, at this rate, it's very likely that Tesla will eventually surpass Apple in market cap. Probably not even that too distant of a future. I mean, just a few years ago, people were like, "What? Tesla will never be $1 trillion company. That's ridiculous." And here we are. So within another couple of years, with this kind of growth that we've seen, with how many deliveries they do, I would not be shocked to see Tesla surpass Apple within the next 4 or 5 years or so in market cap. And also with how much revenue they generate, plus the services model with self-driving tech and the software they could sell people through their cars. Like all of the Teslas they're building right now are incorporating AMD graphics cards that are on par with PlayStations. Like, you're going to be able to put some serious games on that platform and actually sell them to people. Not to mention the connectivity perks and all the benefits Tesla has. Plus the unparalleled demand. They have an insane amount of demand for their vehicles, even though they're not cheap. Trust me, I know that Teslas are not the cheapest EVs out there, but you don't have to be the cheapest to sell the best. What you need to sell the best is the highest production capacity. And Tesla has so much more production capacity. So what could Apple do? Ugh. I can't figure that out. I'm like, rewind time? Find a DeLorean, go back to 2012 and start building your own batteries, start building your own powertrains. And Apple would need to build out their own charger network to kind of compete with the ecosystem and the ease of charging that Tesla has come up with. So, because I'm not interested in anything like CarPlay related. Like, wow, okay, Apple Music shows up by default on the center screen. This is clearly the superior product. It's like, I don't care. You're going to be driving that thing or you're going to be in the car. You just for the same reason I use Spotify Premium instead of Apple Music, even though I admitted in that video, I think Apple Music is the better service. But I can get Spotify Premium for free through my brother-in-law. So yeah, I'm just going to get, at the end of the day, I open an app, I look up a song, I can tap it, and it starts playing. That's what matters. It's going to be the same thing with the car. It's like, okay, Tesla uses Google Maps, Apple Car uses Apple Maps. Okay, great. Like, I don't think little software differences like that are going to make that big a difference. Obviously, if Apple could achieve some really high range numbers and really fast charging rates for a really low price, that would all be great, but because Apple doesn't do vertical integration when it comes to manufacturing, that's not going to happen. You know, it's Apple. Look at how so much of their luxury products cost. Do you think they would suddenly go the affordable route with the car? No way. Of course not. Especially not with the first generation. All EVs right now are prioritizing high price because we can't build enough of them. We can't build them at high volume, so we got to make the luxury models first and work our way down. So of course, Apple, who wants to be looked at as the luxury company with their $700 wheels and the $600 headphones, and they're not going to start out with the budget version of the car. They're not going to, and by budget I mean $50,000-$60,000, something everyday people could afford. If Apple had to enter the EV space, like legally, if they were forced to, they would probably start out with a $130,000, $140,000 luxury sedan, in which case, I don't care. That's not going to make a big dent in the EV space, whatever. Apple has been working on a car for years, not software. Yeah, and there were rumors of them making a car when Steve Jobs was alive. And here we are in 2022, still hasn't come out which is why I'm not going to believe Apple Car is happening until Tim Cook unveils one on stage. I've literally read about Apple Car is coming for years. So at what point do you put your foot down and just admit, okay, maybe these reports don't have much validity, right? Because I remember reading about it in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. You got to put your foot down at a certain point, right? Like, people cannot just keep assuming, okay, they're working on a car, and like, what if we're talking about this in 2032? What if 10 years go by, it's 2032, and they're like, oh, Apple's working on an EV, guys. It's like, oh, I don't care. Let me know when it's done. What about Roadster Semi, Starship colonizing Mars and boring company? There's too many topics to dive into. But basically, I think it's all cool. I like most of the stuff Elon's doing. Look how long it took for the watch. I don't think it took that long for the watch, to be honest. It's taken far long for the Apple Car because there's no Apple Car yet, obviously. But there's always news. There's always little reports here and there. Ooh, Apple's working on this. Apple's working on this. And I'm like, okay, you've said this for years, and then you come out later and say, oh, these talks fell through, or oh, this person left the company, or this person. I'm sure Apple's working on one. But what I know from following Tesla and the EV community is that coming up with the prototype is easy. Mass producing a model is incredibly complicated and insanely hard to do profitably, which Apple has no experience with the automotive space, and even legacy automakers are having a hard time doing EVs profitably. I do not believe the mass production of iPhones, MacBooks, iPads, any of that has much carryover to the same logistics and to the same skills you need to mass produce a vehicle. They're so different. I know that there's similarities now because more and more cars have screens and batteries and software, but that's all trivial relative to how you mass produce batteries with thermal management systems, which most of Apple's products don't have anything close to what an EV has in terms of battery management. Charging systems in place, high-speed chargers. We're not talking USB-C, 100 watts, 140-watt bricks. We're talking CCS connectors that do 250 kilowatts, 350 kilowatts, and how you preserve the battery for long use. You know, a car is used primarily, pretty much always outside. All of Apple's electronics are almost the complete opposite. They're pretty much always used inside, unless you're like me. Apple's always about doing it right, but not first, exactly. But they are definitely far from first at this point. The fact that Apple hasn't even unveiled a finalized prototype, again, which is the easy part, that shows me how far behind they are from everyone else. Even if they unveiled one and said that they were going to mass produce it next year, they're still substantially behind everyone else at this point. Tesla doesn't own Google Maps, so Apple can do more integration. What integration? What is the integration? You can still, on your iPhone, pull up directions on maps and then share it to the car, and when you get in the car, the maps are there. Done. Like, what are you going to get in the Apple Car and do that you can't do in a Tesla? Oh, this is the lane guidance system. It's like, wait, I thought Apple said this whole thing is supposed to be autonomous anyway. You're banking against Tim Cook and logistics. Critics said the same thing about the first-gen Apple. Okay, can we just agree that introducing a smartwatch is completely different from introducing an EV? An EV is not the same. Fossil can introduce a smartwatch and mass produce it to a certain extent. I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying they should have done it a long time ago. If they cared about the EV market, they would have acted on it much, much earlier. Would you recommend MagSafe even though it's slower? Yeah, it's more convenient. It's very simple. You just drop your phone, it starts charging. It's not that slow, easily. How old am I? I'm 23. But no, also, Sharon, I'm not banking against Tim Cook. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I'm not like shorting Apple stock because I think they're not going to release the Apple. I'm not banking on them. As a tech creator, I've made videos for years. I've heard the same old reports about the Apple Car for years. And every year it gets pushed back further and further and further. And then every time you think you're closer, then they push it back again. So when you keep doing that, you have to admit that there may be some people in the leak community, in the news industry, that are being deceptive or dishonest about what is actually coming out. And they're trying to make up news for the sake of clicks that is not easy to be discredited. You know, if someone says an Apple car is coming out in 2027, and then in every couple of years they say, actually, it's been pushed back because so-and-so left the company, you don't have to be right. You can be making stuff up. You can be lying for years and still selling headlines and making news left and right. I do think that happens. I think it's naive to assume that every piece of news is 100% believable and verifiable, which is why in my videos I'll report on news, but I try my best to always discredit it and say, here's why I think this person might be wrong. Here's what I think could be incorrect about that. Yeah, I think that reading it is fine, but don't believe everything you read, especially on the internet. I wonder if Jobs was still around, if he would have seen the rise in the EV market before it happened and put effort into creating an EV a decade ago, since he was a visionary. It's impossible to know what someone would have done, but I certainly think it would have aligned with his way of doing things, because Steve never cared too much about market share, profitability, company growth. He was always just into the product itself being good, and he was like, can we do something special with this product? I heard he didn't get along with Elon Musk very well, so maybe he wasn't that interested in EVs, but I know he was a fan of certain types of cars. I just don't think that Steve Jobs' Apple would have made EVs as quickly as Tesla has. They have different fundamental mission statements. I mean, Apple is about making like quality premium experiences and thought out, you know, in a first party in-house designed software and hardware that works well together so that you can make a product that is just reliable and stable. He was not about like, this product needs to be the only product, or this needs to be the best selling product in the world. He was just like, this is what we like. This is what we think a phone should be like. This is what we think a laptop should be like. Whereas Tesla's mission statement is completely about accelerating the world to more sustainable energy. Nothing about Tesla says we have to have the best software, we have to have the best hardware. It's all just about how many EVs can we make, and can we get them cheaper over time, and can we sell at higher and higher volume. It's like directly in their mission statement, we need to sell this many units a year. So Tesla's products are a lot more motivated by, can we scale this? Can we make a certain number? And I don't think Steve Jobs would have cared as much. Maybe he could have come along and realized that, you know, we got to prioritize the environment and get more gas cars off the road. So maybe that's his motivation, but that's all hypothetical land. Who knows? I'm just saying, think the argument that Apple is too late for any market has been proven wrong. I don't think necessarily. Think about gaming markets, right? They were very late on that one. They didn't really get much of a chance to win over any exclusive titles. They lost Halo to Microsoft, and they never really put much of an emphasis on gaming exclusives and titles. And you know, how many times has Apple tried to enter the social media sphere with a music branded social media, whether it's iTunes Ping, Apple Music Connect? They've tried lots of things and failed at. I think another naive perception is to just assume Apple can succeed and do anything they put their mind to. I think they can succeed at a lot of things, but not everything. And there's evidence to prove that. There's also air power. Let's not bring up air power if if we can help it. Maybe Jobs not getting along with Elon would have sparked his passion to make an EV even more and beat Elon. I wouldn't doubt if Steve was into EVs, he would prioritize making the best ones, but that usually doesn't mean the cheapest. You know, like if Apple would have bought Tesla, they probably would have just prioritized the Model S, and there never would have been much effort to make a Model 3, or definitely never a Cybertruck. Like the concept of Apple making a luxury sedan, I could buy that. Apple making a pickup truck, I would say almost impossible at this point. I'd say like the kind of things Apple prioritizes in a vehicle, and to imagine them trying to design a utility focused, you know, truck that's made for getting work done. I can't, I can't fathom Tim Cook trying to sell us on a pickup truck. What headphones you use for editing videos? AirPods Max or just use earphones? I do not own a pair of AirPods Max, so I still use AirPods Pro. I have issues with all the AirPods, to be honest with you. My biggest issue with AirPods Pro is battery life. It's just inherently the weakest in the lineup. They also... I like the active noise cancellation, but they don't fit in my ear as well as AirPods 2 or AirPods 3 do. So I AirPods Max, ugh, I hate that they're lightning. I hate the case. I hate the price. But I love the sound quality and the transparency mode about them. But AirPods Pro, basically, I hate the least. I have the least amount of issues with AirPods Pro. It's like they get the job done. They have the noise cancellation, which I like. And the sound quality is decent. So when I'm editing my videos, I just use AirPods Pro. That's actually the only pair of headphones I took on this trip. I've only brought the Pros. Do you use cases or screen protectors for your Apple Watch? I don't. That's actually one of the main reasons I got the stainless steel Series 7 was because the sapphire glass. This thing is incredibly difficult to scratch. I've owned several stainless steel sapphire infused Apple Watches, and I've swam in the ocean like 20 feet deep with this thing. I've scratched them on rocks. I've hit them on doorknobs. I've had them but ding. My wife's Apple Watch. She has a steel Series 3, and she'll wear it on her right hand because she's left-handed. And sometimes when we're walking together, our watches will clank and hit each other. And yet her watch is from 2017, nearly 5 years old. There's not a single ding, not a single scuff or scratch on that glass. It is still pristine. It ages insanely well. So it costs a bit more. I wish I didn't have to buy the steel option to get that glass. I would probably buy an aluminum one if it had the sapphire glass. But I do plan on owning this for more than 1 year. I don't want to upgrade to the Series 8. I'll probably review it, but no, I don't use cases or screen protectors on anything. I'll probably get a screen protector for my Tesla, though, just because I plan on owning that for decades. There's not very many tech products I plan to own for that long. Carmel Craft says, but easy to crack, though. Actually, with the Series 7, they improved the crack resistance by 50%, and I've never had an Apple Watch crack on me. I've been very, very hard on my watches. I don't baby them at all. I wear them in the ocean. I wear them in the shower. I wear them... and they get scratched and dinged on all kinds of things. Never had one crack. I've never dropped a watch, though. I've never, because I wear it, it's not like, oops, I dropped it. Drew's against the Apple Car because it would bridge Tailosive Tech and EV, making separate channels and separate revenue streams no longer possible. No, it is a good question, though. I think because it's EV related, I would keep it on EV, but it would be probably very easy to cross promote. Just be like, hey, I did another video on the Apple Car. Check it out on Tailosive EV. So it would definitely bring a lot of Apple fans over, but no, I'm not against it for that reason. I don't know if I've made it obvious enough. I really want Apple to enter the EV space. I think we did a podcast on it not too long ago where I basically said the biggest missed opportunity. I think an iguana just fell from a tree. I could hear him. Oh, go ahead. The biggest missed opportunity Apple ever had was not entering the EV space sooner. Because I frankly think just with how many players there already are in the EV space and how many of them are getting into their own battery and powertrain production, the fact that Apple hasn't unveiled a car right now, right this second, puts them at a severe disadvantage timeline-wise. The luxury market's already saturated. The mid-range, crossover market is getting saturated very quickly. Not that Apple doesn't have brand power. I'm sure they would sell at some volume, but not in any meaningful difference compared to Tesla or probably even compared to Lucid or Mercedes or any of that. If Apple would have gotten into EVs quicker, thank you for the super chat. I'll answer that in a second. The potential for the EV market is well in the trillions of dollars. Like Apple missing out on the AAA gaming market, they don't miss out too much by not having, exclusive Spider-Man or Halo or popular games not being on iOS or being compatible with macOS. You lose out on some revenue there, but it's not nearly as big as the EV market. The EV market is going to be huge. It's already growing at an astounding rate. Probably Apple's best bet is to buy out a startup that goes under like Lucid or Rivian, but I don't think that'll happen because they've got too much investment behind them. So missing out on AAA gaming, not that big a deal. AR glasses, that'll come out when it's ready. It'll be kind of cool, but kind of pricey at first and trickle down in prices. It'll be useful and impressive, but I still don't think the market cap for it will be as massive as the EV sector is. When you have people regularly spending $30,000-$40,000 on a vehicle, that's going to be a much bigger market than $1,000 glasses and that kind of thing. I don't care about the paint job. No, I don't plan on getting PPF on my Tesla just because it costs a lot, and I don't care about the paint. You should see the paint on my current car. That's why I wish I had a steel vehicle, so I just didn't have paint to worry about. But no, the screen I do plan on using and looking at a lot. The paint I don't care about. Anyway, Green Super Chatted, he says, will removing the SIM card tray and removing the charger benefit consumers in any way, and will you stream the Galaxy Unpack event? If there's enough people that want me to react to it, maybe. I don't know when it is. So that says a lot about how interested I am in the next Galaxy. I just don't care, to be honest, because I'm not in the market for a Galaxy phone. I don't know anything that phone could have that would make me want to ditch my iPhone. But removing the SIM card tray and removing the charger, benefiting, I would say it would improve water resistance. I mean, the Apple Watch doesn't have a port or a SIM card tray, and that's a lot more water resistant than the iPhone is, so maybe that's one of it. Probably bigger battery. You know, the SIM card slot probably takes up a lot of useful space to the engineering team, and they would much rather use that towards a better camera, use it towards whatever you want, really. You could put another LiDAR sensor in there, that kind of thing. So yeah, not anything directly. Usually when Apple removes something, it's not because they want to use that space for something else. It's typically because they think there's a superior standard that they want to push people towards. It's you know, when they removed all the legacy ports from the 2015 MacBook Pro, it wasn't so that they could fit in a much bigger battery or anything. It was like, no, we just think these ports are better, so go all in with USB-C. I think Ross Young said AirPower is coming. No, he did not. You got to be joking. That would be hilarious if he did. I'd be like, oh man, I want to believe you, but I can't believe you. I'm sorry, it won't happen. Why am I working during my holiday? This isn't really my holiday. The plan from the beginning, the whole reason I bought a MacBook was so that I can work in different places in the world. So it's kind of a balance of some days I'm here, I'll go tour and visit somewhere, and other days when we have downtime, like, it's not like if I didn't have my YouTube channel, I would just be out and exploring right now. Like, the car basically that we need to get around is being used by one of our friends who's working and getting life done. So I would just be chilling here doing nothing anyway. So I'm glad to have a powerful MacBook I can edit videos with and do live streams off of. Yeah, we need more LiDAR. Did you use your iPhone to film the underwater scenes in your recent vlog? I did. All the vlogs on Tailosive Talks are off the iPhone. You probably shouldn't do what I did though. Don't take your iPhone 20 feet deep in salt water and film stuff. It's mostly working fine, but it was a bad idea. And I definitely shouldn't have done that, but I was like, you know what? The video is gonna last a lot longer than the phone will. So it works fine. It's just basically the bottom speaker, when it plays certain frequencies, rattles a little bit. That's it. Touchscreen works, Face ID works, camera still works. Everything about it's fine. And it doesn't even do it consistently. There's a lot of videos I'll watch and the speaker sounds fine. But when it plays certain frequencies at a certain volume, that's the other thing. I don't notice the rattle if it's under 50% volume. So I don't know if that'll fix itself eventually, but the truth is I don't listen to videos or music through my phone's external speaker that frequently anyway. If I am watching something, I typically have headphones in. So again, don't do what I did, but I did technically swim pretty deep in the ocean with my phone. No case. But yeah, if they improve the water resistance so that I could do that more frequently, that would be cool too. Let's see. It's odd to hear people say they virtually never take off their smartwatch because of me growing up. I habitually just take off all my tech when I go to the beach and whatnot. No, I want to get footage of stuff. I want to film things. So yeah, I'll typically film a lot with my phone, and the watch stays on. Yeah. took the iPhone 20 feet deep in salt water, and it survived that dang. Yeah, other than the speaker occasionally rattling, it works perfectly fine. I've done a lot of underwater stuff with the phone. This is the first time I've ever had an issue. With the 12 mini, I filmed that underwater pretty deep several times on a couple trips when we were usually in freshwater, but still not like a pool. It was like in rivers, like rivers in nature and stuff with like mud and everything, and I would just go under and film. And normally you just play some music or something and all the water shoots out the speaker and it's fine. So this is the first time I've had an issue, but I did pretty freaking deep. Go. It's kind of cool shots though. There was so many fish under the water. If you haven't seen it yet, check out Tailosive Talks, because that's where I did the vlog. It's the second vlog called hitting up beaches in Puerto Rico. That's the one where we jumped off a little pier and went really, really deep and filmed all the fish under the water. It looks really, really cool. I destroyed my 13 Pro Max in Puerto Rico. Not clickbait. I like that expression, not clickbait, because it literally is clickbait if you say that. But yeah, I eject the water, but something got stuck in there. I don't know. One day it might just dislodge and fall out. That could happen too. Do you remember the phone in rice days, Drew? We're about the same age. Yeah. I remember people saying that. I don't think it ever worked, though. My sister got her phone in water several times. Before iPhones, she got her phone in water and left it in rice several times. It is probably salt. But, I mean, the phone still technically works. It's like a very specific way that it doesn't work. And I wasn't planning on selling my 13 Pro Max. You know, I, from the beginning, was like, no, I'm going to keep this one for a long time. So I don't notice it, really, in day-to-day use. So it's not that big a deal. But thank you, Benji. What would you do if your iPhone breaks? I guess that would be the exception to the rule. I'd probably look around for a sale, or if Apple has certified refurbished 13 Pro Maxes. You know, I don't want to go back to having a phone that doesn't have 120 hertz. So I would try to replace it pretty much exactly the way it is. Maybe I wouldn't get 256 gig. That 4K at ProRes ended up not being that big a deal. So I was like, yeah, I wanted that for the review purposes of the channel, but at the end of the day, I didn't really need that much storage anyway. So that's probably one thing I would change. Have you considered a smartphone gimbal? Yeah, I've used them in the past. I had a DJI gimbal for a while. The truth is, the gimbal I got from DJI actually did not end up aging very well. After a couple of years, it stopped working properly, and it would like always pan the phone to the right. And it wouldn't stop panning, and it wouldn't stay stable. Plus, it was micro USB. I know they've released new ones since then that are USB-C, but just because after a couple of years it stopped aging very well, I was less interested in buying another one. Plus, I film a lot with my iPhone via handheld. It's not that shaky. I haven't seen that complaint come up in most of my vlogs. Like, I do a lot of vlogging, and no one's like, oh, this is too shaky. It would be, you should spend $100 on a gimbal so it's more stable. It's like, first of all, the gimbal I couldn't take with me to the ocean anyway, because it's going to get sand in it or it's going to get wet. Second of all, a lot of my shots, especially if I'm touring, you know, a trail. This morning I posted a vlog about us hiking through the El Yunque National Forest. I film most of that stuff with the ultra-wide lens. And when you're filming in ultra-wide, it's very, very hard to have a shaky shot. It's usually pretty stable. My hands are fairly stabilized as well. So I know that there's probably just expectations, you know, when you're a content creator, when you're a YouTuber, you got to buy all the gear, right? You got to buy the drone, you got to buy the gimbal, you got to buy this, because that's what everyone buys. But I try to look at it as like the end product value. It's like I recorded a bunch of vlogs with the gimbal, and I recorded a bunch of vlogs without the gimbal. Responses didn't change. There wasn't a bunch of people saying, wow, this looks so much better. There's like nothing changed. Everyone was like, yeah, looks good. So I don't think the gimbal's worth it personally for my needs. If I was maybe doing some more stuff that involved a lot of, like if I wanted to film more on my mountain bike, my friend Ross has a gimbal for his GoPro, so that when he's riding on his mountain bike, it looks much more stable. Because if you tried to attach the GoPro without a gimbal to your chest while you're riding a mountain bike, yeah, that's going to be really shaky. But for my vlogging style, gimbal hasn't been that useful. Yeah, Tailosive drone. So I've thought about it, but no. My iPhone 5 got dunked in water. Good old days. Dropped my iPhone 6 in the ocean one day back in 2018. It still works perfectly somehow. There you go. That's awesome. Are you planning on keeping your 13 Pro Max for several years and not using a case or screen protector? Despicable. Yeah. I've never broken a phone by dropping it. And I've never, like, dropped my phone and, like, really scratched up the side or anything like that. I'm just careful with my phone typically. But we've been live streaming for a while here, so I have a new tech video for you today. Of course, I'm not going to say every time I go live there's a video ready, but this time there just so happens to be. The MacBook started at 93% and now it's at 40%, which is pretty good. So the video is live now. I posted it in the chat. Feel free to watch it, and I will catch you guys all later. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.